8:20 on the East Coast. At the bottom of this hour at 8:30, we'll have poll closings in Arkansas right now in crucial swing states, Virginia, North Carolina, and Ohio, and Florida and New Hampshire. It is too close to call. Florida is the biggest prize there in terms of the number of electoral votes at stake. Howard Fineman joins us now with some more information specifically on the importance of the Latino vote and the diversity of the Latino vote in Florida and where that may be going tonight. Howard?
Well, Rachel, I think if the president ends up winning tonight, one of the big stories, if not in a way the biggest story, is going to be the Latino vote, at least according to the people that I talked to. And one of them is Sergio Bendixen, who is probably, while a Democrat, the most knowledgeable person overall on this topic. And Sergio, what he told me just a few minutes ago is that he thinks it's possible that the Hispanic vote nationwide could end up going by as much as 75% for the president, and only 25% or so for Mitt Romney. Now, those numbers may tighten somewhat, but keep in mind that in 2004, President George W. Bush won nearly 40% of the Hispanic vote. If Mitt Romney loses, ironically, it may be because of Iowa, and it may be because of Rick Perry, because if you remember back, it seems a million years ago, in the Iowa caucus race in the Republican side, Rick Perry of Texas, the governor of Texas, a sort of moderate, if you will, on immigration, came roaring into that state hoping to win. Mitt Romney went to his right on immigration. Mitt Romney drifted extremely to the right on the immigration issue in order to beat Rick Perry. And according to the people I've spoken to tonight, it was that as much as anything else, as well as the president's efforts in the Hispanic community, that could produce this kind of national number. In the southwestern states, in Colorado and Nevada and New Mexico, et cetera, the Latino vote is going by 80-20. Or close to it, to President Obama. In Florida, Chuck said it had to be over 60%, I think, on the Democratic side. Right now, it's running around 62% for the president. So nationally, it's kind of like a stratum of rock beneath the surface of American politics here, Rachel, and it's something that the president is standing on. If he wins, that's going to be demographically, arguably, the most important reason.
Howard Fineman, thank you. That's critical demographic brick wall. John McCain lost in 2008 with a 36-point gap among Latinos. If we are looking at one of the recent polls, the Latino Decisions poll, at a 49-point gap with Latinos, or even a 50-point gap, like you were just hearing speculated on there by sources of Howard's, that is something that is very hard to get around. Chris?
Big news there. Joining us right now is former Florida Governor Charlie Crist, who was a Republican and then switched his party affiliation to Independent when he lost in that Senate race up to Mark Rubio. Let me ask you about this whole, Charlie, you've become a good friend of mine, and I really think you're a smart analyst of that state. And by the way, you'd be governor for life down there if you'd stuck with that job. Well, you should have stuck anyway. You know you should have stuck with that job because they liked you in that job. Let me ask you about looking at it tonight. When you look at the numbers that Chuck Todd gave us so far a few moments ago, do you see objectively still a chance, if these people stay in line tonight, especially minorities, stay in line tonight, can Obama win Florida?
Chris, you just hit the nail on the head. As long as people have perseverance, they stay in line, they are not deterred, of course the president can win, and I think that he would. But it really comes to that. You know, there's been such an effort to have, voter suppression in Florida. It's shocking to me. We went from 14 days of early voting 4 years ago to 8 days of early voting this time. A plea to have the governor sign an executive order to have more voting hours when people were waiting in lines, 2, 3, 4, some 6-hour waits, which is unconscionable to me, but wouldn't do it. And, but people, I think, really have a backlash to that kind of stuff, Chris. It's kind of like when somebody tells you can't do something, you really want to do it. And they become, unsatisfied, they become frustrated, they become infuriated. And when that happens, people are determined. I told them this morning when I was in Tampa, I said, take a cooler with you, take a sandwich, take a friend. Don't be afraid to stay in these lines as long as it takes. People have, risked their lives, and some lost their lives for this precious right to vote. Staying in line a little long may be inconvenient, but it's worth it. The future of the country's at stake.
You know, the people in this country are right at the edge sometimes in having faith in our electoral counts. I mean, you've got secretaries of state, people like Katherine Harris. You had people in Ohio. You have now one, Houston. You've got people who are so highly partisan, and yet they have the job of keeping the elections honest and running honest elections. What's going on in our country? We begin to act like a third world country, and I mean no disrespect to third world countries here. When we start having elections you can't trust because they keep changing the game and the rule every time. Shouldn't we have a law where you can't change any election law till maybe 2 or 3 cycles after you're out of power? At least then there wouldn't be changing the rules like they're doing now in Florida with Katherine Harris, with Jeb Bush back then. There was a lot of questions about the 2000 race, and here we are again.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. I think the reality here is that you have people who are trying to suppress the vote in Florida and across the country. And the reason is they feel like they have to rig the game in order to win the game. And that's a bad place to be. Democracy is important. This freedom is precious. People need to respect it. They need to honor it. And people in a position of public policy need to realize this, Chris. You know, when you're elected governor of Florida, you're not the governor of the Republicans of Florida. You're the governor of the people of Florida. And you need to stand up for the people each and every time. Do what's right, call it straight, and we just don't have that right now, and it's very frustrating, and my heart bleeds for my state as a result of it.
Are you talking to Rick Scott right now when you say that stuff?
Well, he's the governor, yes, absolutely. I mean, let's call it out and let's call it what it is. It's not right, and the legislature went along with it, but only one person has the power and had the power to sign an executive order to do away with this, and Governor Scott didn't do it.
Well, let me ask you about the way it works in voter suppression. A lot of us think of voter suppression as highly systemic, whereby you make the lines longer, whether it's Ohio, and you find at the end of the day, the worst reports about irregularities, whatever the current euphemism is it's really affecting minorities. Our urban areas, we have poor people, a lot of minorities. They end up waiting in line where the more affluent areas, the suburban areas, you never hear these problems. So is that directed from the capital, from Tallahassee? Is that where that stuff comes from?
Sure, it's where it's coming from. And let me give you another example. We have a tradition in Florida and many African-American communities throughout the country where on the Sunday before the Tuesday election, you have souls to the polls. Now, they took out the Sunday before the Tuesday election in Florida this time. So we did souls to the polls the week before. And the notion that you would take away that tradition, that honored tradition in the state of Florida and other states across the country, you know, that's pretty targeted stuff.
Yeah.
And for somebody to be willing to do that, Chris, is just, it shocks the conscience of a fair-minded American.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, former President Bill Clinton said it was the most blatant example in Florida of cutting down Sunday before voting, most blatant example of voter suppression he'd come across. Anyway, thank you. It's great to have you on, Charlie Crist, the former governor, perhaps future governor of, well, I like to say those things that cause you trouble, the perhaps future governor of Florida, Charlie Crist.
Thank you, my pleasure.
I will say that he sounded like a man who wants to be governor of Florida again. I'm don't put words in his mouth. All right. Joining us now from Obama headquarters in Chicago is David Plouffe. He's a senior advisor to President Obama. Mr. Plouffe, it's a big night for you. Thanks very much for taking time to talk with us.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
All too close to call by NBC News characterizations in Ohio, North Carolina, Virginia, Florida, and New Hampshire. Is too close to call bad news for you at any of those states at this point? Did you expect to get a quick call in any of those states? Did you think you'd be far enough ahead?
Absolutely not. You know, we've been consistent about this for the entire campaign, that these battleground states are going to be close. But we have maintained that we have a strong position in them and entered Election Day with a lead. And everything we're seeing in the actual returns encourages us greatly. The turnout levels, how people are voting, how we modeled independent voters. So as we look at what's happening in Florida, Virginia, North Carolina, Ohio, New Hampshire, we're liking what we're seeing a great deal. These are going to be close. You know, we're not going to win battleground states by 6-8 points this year. They're going to be, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 point races. But we really like what we're seeing, and everything's modeling out the way we had projected.
In all of the battleground states, at least that I was able to get information on in terms of early voting this year, in all of them except Colorado, Democrats had some lead in early voting. Republicans actually looks like they had the lead in Colorado early voting. But looking at the margins from 2008, you did see a smaller Democratic margin in all of the states where we had data. Did you have a plan, or do you have a plan, even still tonight, in terms of trying to make it up on Election Day when you didn't have as big a cushion from early voting in some of these states that you earned last time around?
Again, I think the comparison to 2008 is faulty. it's irrelevant. We're not going to win by the same margins we did in 2008. The only measure is, are we getting enough early vote to allow us to win battleground states, to get 50% of the vote? And there's no doubt in terms of where we thought heading into today, but more importantly, we're seeing actual vote being counted. And we really like what we're seeing in absentee vote. Even in Colorado, by the way, in pure registration, it was very close. But we think we're going to win the support of more independent voters in early vote than Governor Romney does. So we think in all of the core 9 battleground states, particularly those that had early vote, we still maintain a great pathway to victory. And we like the early vote in Florida, the early vote in Ohio. I think you're going to see that when Colorado and Nevada begin to report their early vote, that we did well in early vote because of the great work of our volunteers and put us in a position to win those states.
I have to interrupt you there for a moment, sir, just because we've just received word that we can make a call in a state we had not previously been able to characterize. Polls have just closed just moments ago in the great state of Arkansas. In Arkansas, the projected winner there is Mitt Romney. Not exactly a great surprise, but we have to let you know about that. You can also make a call in an important and hotly contested Senate race. In the state of Connecticut, NBC News projects that the winner is Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy beating Linda McMahon in the Connecticut Senate race. That I have to say is a surprise. Actually, David Plouffe, I'd love to hear your reaction to that. We've had a win for Florida Senator Bill Nelson in that state, even as the presidential race is too close to call. And in Connecticut, which President Obama won, we have now, in that closely contested Senate race there, had a call for Chris Murphy. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think Chris Murphy ran a great race. As you know, he was outspent tremendously. And our Senate candidates all across the country faced an unprecedented amount of super PAC money. We did it at the presidential level. The Senate candidates, people like Sherrod Brown, Bill Nelson, Chris Murphy, they've run great races. And I think it wasn't too long ago where the Republican Party thought they had a very good chance tonight to win back the Senate. And I think the only question tonight is, are we going to add to our majority? And we think we have a good chance to do that.
In terms of the closeness of the race, obviously there are some automatic recount thresholds in some of the states that are still too close to call at this point. We may be up against that where we're in automatic recount territory. How confident are you in the process of counting votes? And in the electoral process, we saw very, very, very long lines in Florida. We just heard some angry characterizations of the politics behind those long lines in Florida from former Governor Charlie Crist, who now supports your candidate. We also saw some long, long lines in very specific neighborhoods, Democratic-leaning neighborhoods in Ohio. How confident are you in the process of this election?
Well, first of all, what's remarkable is people stood in those long lines, first during early voting, all throughout the country, today on Election Day, and it was a very powerful image. Obviously, you know, we can, I think, after this election, reflect on what we need to change, because it ought to not take people 5 or 6 hours in the United States of America to cast their vote. So that's something for, you know, tomorrow. But I think what you're seeing is the determination of people to see this president carry forward. We saw that through early vote. Our remarkable volunteers out there are the reason that we feel we're going to win the presidency again tonight, because they are turning out people in really an unprecedented grassroots movement. And I think, again, on the battleground states, they're going to be close. They're going to come down to a point, 2, 3, 4 points. But in terms of what we're seeing, Rachel, right now, in the raw vote that's coming in, we feel very confident.
David Plouffe, you are one of the most serious and on-message people I ever interview on any subject. Do you mind if I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
Don't be scared. What are you going to do tomorrow? What do you do? I mean, win or lose, do you have plans to like do something personal and like go on vacation? What does David Plouffe do after the election?
Well, Rachel, it's my daughter's 4th birthday tomorrow. So I'm going to be having a birthday party with her tomorrow night, no matter what happens tonight, and I can't wait to get back home and see her. Well, happy birthday to your daughter, regardless of how tonight goes. Thank you, sir, and enjoy your evening. Thank you. I know it. Wow. All right, more exit polls ahead. We're going to be looking at the effect of Hurricane Sandy on this race. Again, New Jersey races are being described as too early to call, sort of with an asterisk here, that as voting is extended even past Election Day in New Jersey to account for the effect of the storm, there may be some late calls in New Jersey because of that state's extenuating circumstances. This is MSNBC's coverage of the 2012 election. We'll be back right after this.